You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Ford,
Corey, Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mott,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Charlene Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is...
Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm super excited to have Michael Ledwidge back on the show with me today. He was with us just about a year ago, talking about his brand new Michael Gannon book, the kickoff of a new series. Well, today he's back to talk about Run for Cover, the brand new book 2 in the Michael Gannon series. I loved the first book in this series, and I'll tell you what, the second one just ramps up the tension, the excitement, the adventure, and he goes places I never expected him to go. Michael, I love the new book. Super excited to talk about it. Welcome back to the show.
Hank, thank you so much. It's great to be back.
Absolutely. Michael, I was listening back to last year's episode, just refreshing my memory and kind of, figuring out what ground we covered and what was left to cover and all that good stuff. And I realized that when I talked to you last year, which was March 3rd, if I remember right.
That's right.
I had just gotten out of the hospital with COVID the day before. And yes, and I was listening back, and my voice was just shredded, and I'd been coughing a lot and all this stuff, and we didn't really know what we were facing with COVID at the time, and and the week later, the week after that, everything locked down, and we went into what has been the year of 2020.
The forgotten year. Yeah.
The forgotten year. Right. So I would like to start because, we've had lots of conversations about what a nationwide pandemic has meant for creative people and all of that kind of stuff. But since you and I talked at really this interesting time, what has it been like since then for you? Because right after we talked, we went into this lockdown. You were working on Run for Cover then, I'm pretty sure. How did that affect the writing of this book, or your editing process and all of that, all the work that went into the book we're talking about today during a worldwide pandemic?
Yeah, very strange, right? It's strange for everybody, people from all walks of life. Actually, the book is pretty much done before it hit, but yeah, a lot of people are talking about it and asking about how does this affect people, like what you write about and things of this nature. But to my mind, I mean, because I know some writers have said, people might want to include COVID in plots of their stories, whatever. To my mind, I think people need escape.
Yes.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm done with COVID.
I don't think they want to read about what's going on right now. I think they'd rather read about things that would take their mind off of the kind of stress of all this stuff. So to my mind, I'm just going to keep going along with, with stories where, COVID's not going to really be a theme.
Yeah.
Well, or even included. Just let's pretend it doesn't exist.
An interesting thing is, for writers, for most writers that I know, are fairly solitary people. We tend to work in a room by ourselves most of the day, just our laptop or notebook or whatever it is that you write with. And, the fact that the rest of the world is shut down shouldn't have much of an effect, on the day-to-day proceedings of a writer's life. But there's something about being told, that the rest of the world is shut down and you can't go do this and you can't do that, even though it may not hinder you, walking to your computer to write each day.
Right.
Has that affected you in any way, even if it's just, mentally or how you interact with other people?
Um, you're right about the fact that I think for I can't just speak for all writers, but for me, this is the way that I live anyway.
Right.
Just like you said, I work from home and I don't commute anywhere. It's just changed, going to get food and things of this nature, and going to church and what have you. But it's funny. It's I see a lot more people walking around my neighborhood, which I didn't see before because I live in the suburbs of Hartford County in Connecticut. And most of the people around me are kind of corporate people. And usually there'd be nobody. I'd go for my walk. I wouldn't see a soul. And now I go out, I see family. I mean, it's actually kind of nice. People walking their dogs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, there's other people who actually live here. That's good. But so, yeah, I mean, that's one aspect of it. But yeah, to tell you the truth, this is kind of the way that I live anyway. Exactly what you said.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's enough talk about COVID. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Sure.
When we talked last time, Michael, you told me this great story of when you and your now wife, when she was your girlfriend, you started writing these fake ransom notes, and you said, that like this was the start of your.
This is the start of my crime writing career. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever, what I wanted to ask you is, did you ever get her to actually try one?
Oh, to just slip it to the teller? No way. What are you, crazy? No way.
Right.
She's smart for that. And, it's actually funny because her dad, my father-in-law, he passed away, but he actually was an FBI agent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so no way. I mean, the father would be called in to investigate the robbery.
Oh, man. Well, that's a definite twist, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually interesting. Her dad, his first case was actually a very famous case. He was 23 years old. He got sent down to Birmingham, Alabama for the Baptist church bombing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was his first case.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, I bet he has some stories.
He had, yes, tons of stories. Yeah, definitely.
True. We know that you started your publishing career around 1999. Is that right?
1999. Yeah, it actually took a little while to get started. I wrote my first novel when I was 26, because right now I'm 50. But I wrote my first novel. I was 26 years old in 1996. But it actually took a couple of years because the publisher at the time, Atlantic Monthly Press, if you remember, there's a very big book that came out right when my book got sold. Cold Mountain.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a super big hit, and it was kind of a small publishing house. So, and the head of the publishing house, famous guy Morgan Entrican, this editor, great guy. But he had all these things to do. So, but he wanted to personally edit my book, so he kind of put it off. I was like, come on, let's give it to somebody else already. But it took a long time for him. But it was great because he's such a great editor. But it was funny because it was delayed. But yeah. So yeah, that was a while ago.
That brings up an interesting question I want to ask you. When there are these kind of touchstone moments in publishing where a book comes out and it just goes interstellar, and it just blows up, and then movies are made of it, and that sort of thing. As a new writer, or as a seasoned writer like you are now, do those other things that happen in the publishing industry, do they have any effect on you? Like when these big monumental moments and these books break out, does that affect all other writers, good, bad, or does everyone reading affect the reading public in general? Does it help when something gets people reading?
Yeah, I mean, you have to. In that instance, it was great for the publishing house because they were just, everybody was really happy, and you were part of the whole thing. I remember I went to they had a Christmas party. They invited me to the Christmas party. There's a lot of big smiles because it was a very small house, and they were, literally were making millions and millions of dollars because that book was it was number one for over a year or something. I mean, it was a phenomenal hit. And so, yeah, it was fun. It was fun to be around that kind of success and everything like that. So I thought that was terrific. But then, like I said, there was this kind of delay where I wanted the book to come out faster than it did. But, whatever, it all worked out in the end. But yeah, and I mean, and then after that, I wrote two other novels, and then I started working with the world's best-selling author, James Patterson. So that was another kind of going back to this this incredible, just being around all this incredible success. I mean, it's absolutely, even if it's not you personally being, lauded, just to be around it is amazing. I mean, it's you learn so much, and you come into contact with a lot of really top-notch professional people, and you learn a lot, so it's all good. I mean, even if it's not you personally, if you're even around it, it's inspiring to you, because you say to yourself, hopefully one day I'll get my shot, to share something similar. This is the kind of the dream of, I think, every writer wants to be successful. We want to have lots and lots of people read the book, even if, the money, obviously people want to pay their bills and everything, but I think it's just so wonderful having people just read the book and enjoy the book,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. As many people as possible.
Right. Absolutely. More people reading means all of us benefit.
Absolutely.
You've published quite a number of books, and like you mentioned, you wrote several books with James Patterson, had a great publishing relationship with him. Looking back to 1999 and then, through to current day, can you see how your writing process has changed over that time? I know that you said that personally, when you're writing for you, you're more of a discovery writer, but not a pure discovery writer. And then, of course, when you're working with another author, when you've got two people working, things need to be planned out a little more. Just to keep each other, on track and keep that flow going.
Right.
But how have you seen your process change and the way you think about stories over this almost 25 years?
Yeah. Well, in the very beginning, I was definitely more of a discovery writer. When I first started out, especially with my first novel, I didn't even know where it was kind of going. I just kind of started it and built it sentence by sentence. And it came out good. It came out. A lot of people liked it. But one of the really cool things about once I started working with James Patterson, I was able to. We were so successful. I was able to I worked for the telephone company. I was able to retire and work full time as a writer, which is great. Again, dream come true. But one of the coolest things is, like, even when I wasn't working real hard to keep this wonderful job with James Patterson, it was so great. I had so much time to do research, and I had so much time to just read, because I always, I have a lifelong love of reading, like most writers. But to delve into all the process of writing, reading about other writers, how they did it, really kind of researching the whole process of writing. And I've read so many things like philosophy. I just had all this time to read, and to read the things that I wanted to read. And so, so I've, again, you get a little bit older, and it's less of, because I think in the beginning, I don't know if this is true of other writers, but you kind of just say, you kind of try to, you more kind of pigeonhole yourself and say, well, this is the way that I did it before. I should keep doing it this way. But the older that you get, the more you realize, no, why don't I just explore how other people do it and try that? So that, and today I think I'm kind of the opposite. I don't really, I discover, once I kind of come up with the general kind of plot of a story or whatever, I will outline, I usually outline a lot, and I do a lot of research before I really get started with the process of writing. So it's actually kind of come full circle. I'm the opposite now. I'm a super, I'm a super outliner. Because again, I've been at this for a long time. And you'll try, I've been doing this for 20 years. So it's like, okay, let me try it this way. You're just more open the longer that you do anything, I'd say, right? So
right.
Yeah, so I'm kind of the opposite now. I think if to a beginning writer, if they kind of saw the way that I do it now, they'd be like, oh, I don't know, that seems too kind of analytical or something. But it's like, hey, stick around, kid, for a while. You'll do anything. You don't care anymore. You'll try anything.
Authors, I have a fantastic new service to tell you about. It's called PubSite. PubSite is a service to help you build your very own website, your home on the web, where you can promote your work and give your fans a place to connect with you. PubSite is a website platform that allows every author, regardless of budget, to have a great-looking professional website developed by the book marketing professionals at FSB Associates. PubSite is the new, easy-to-use DIY website builder developed specifically for books and authors. Whether you're an author of one book or 20, or a small publisher, PubSite allows you to build, design, and most importantly, update your website pain-free. No need to be dependent on a designer or webmaster to make a small but costly change to your website. Save the money and do it yourself. PubSite is the best platform for authors because it's a book-centric platform. PubSite was built just for authors and small publishers. Every design, feature, and layout is book-centric. They have customized designs for you to use. It's easy to build. No coding or HTML is necessary to create a stunning, professional-looking website with all the features you want. Get a custom domain name, yourname.com. It's simple to update. You can add all of your books, add a blog and a book tour, sell from any retailer, manage your email list and social media, and even do e-commerce. Build your website with a 14-day free trial, then pay just $19.99 per month, which includes hosting. And we offer packages starting at $499 to set up the website for you. Pub-site.com, the place to help authors find their home on the web. Dream Author by Sophie Hannah is an immersive 14-month coaching program for writers at any and every level of experience, and also for those of you who want to write and are just waiting for the right encouragement and guidance to get you started. Your writing dreams should make you happy. For so many of us, our dreams are not a source of happiness. Instead, they cause us stress, guilt, frustration, and even shame. Here's the great news. All of these feelings are natural and all writers experience them. The problem, though, is that when your writing dreams bring you more anxiety than joy, it affects your resolve and your productivity, and you end up not taking the action you need to take in order to propel your dreams in the right direction so that they can stand a strong chance of coming true. That's why Sophie created the Dream Author Coaching Program, to teach anyone who is passionate about writing how to change the way they build, think about, and pursue their writing dreams in order to become their own most powerful ally and advocate for the rest of their writing life. And more great news. Once you've learned that skill, it lasts forever. Visit dreamauthorcoaching.com to get started today.
You know,
Well, last year when the first book in the series came out, I loved the story, and the characters were great, and you know, I was thinking, well, this really has potential. Well, now at book 2, Run for Cover's out, Michael Gannon is more nuanced. We see more about him. You know, he comes off of it. And, you know, I don't want to give away too much for people that might not have read book 1 yet. But after the end of book 1, we find him in a completely different setting for book 2, which I thought was great. But thinking back to where this began, what were some of the first things about the character of Michael Gannon that intrigued you enough that you wanted to write him, and what was it about him that let you know that this could be a series, you know, that he was a guy who could carry a series forward? Right.
It's funny. I mean, when I first, it didn't start out with Michael Gannon as a series character. It really started out. I've had this idea because my first couple novels were kind of really hard boiled crime stories. More kind of Quentin Tarantino-esque. Like my first book was a heist book. More of this kind of noirish kind of crime stuff. And so I always had in the back of my head sort of a noir story about, instead of there's a great story. I forget the name of the story, but there's a great Cornell Woolrich novel. A crime novel about a chauffeur who becomes romantically involved. He's a chauffeur for a gangster, and he becomes a romantic, and all this crazy stuff happens. Yeah. So I always thought I always had in the back of my head what I wanted to do was kind of update that story and have the chauffeur be the pilot of a private jet. Right, to kind of update it and have the gangster be like some kind of billionaire guy or whatever. And so that was really so I had this story in the back of my head for a long time, for years. And so then so when I kind of sat down and kind of think of what's the next book I'm going to do, I had this idea. So I had this idea squarely in mind, and I had just read No Country for Old Men, the Cormac McCarthy.
Right.
And I said to myself, and just, one thing kind of connected to the other. And I said to myself, so I had this whole jet thing in my head about some kind of gangster with a plane full of whatever, with money or whatever, drugs or whatever. And then this idea of the plane crashing in the ocean. And actually, the whole character of Gannon came out of the whole thing by saying, well, if somebody saw this plane crash in the ocean, and let's say the plane's under the water, that he'd be a diver. So, and then it kind of came out of that kind of organically to say, like, okay, so what kind of person could this be? What could his background be? And I said, oh, wait, maybe he's a Navy SEAL. And that's where the whole kind of germ of the story came from.
And one thing just builds on another, and it kind of that process. I love that.
It came out of the situation. Like what? Right. So who's going to be the main character? That came after this. I called this kind of intense situation, and then the character came after that. And I even right. So yeah. So it was cool. It worked out. I really thought, because and then when I started writing, I said, man, this could be a series guy. I didn't know myself before I started writing.
Well, it makes perfect sense that's how character builds. The more you learn about him, the more possibilities open up.
Right.
So you described last time this idea that you have about preparing to write a book, and you described it as like getting the groceries, yes. Where you kind of inform yourself on as many things as you feel are pertinent to the story ahead of time. And then when you sit down to write, then you have all of this, knowledge that you built up to pull from. And right. It's not like line by line research. It's more like you said, getting the groceries. You've got the kitchen stock. Now what do I do with these ingredients?
Right. And again, I took that idea. That idea is actually, I didn't invent that. That's from a writer. He used to write for the New Yorker. His name is John McPhee. And he wrote about geology or something like that.
Right.
And so he said this was his method. I said, oh, I like this. I'm going to try this. I'll borrow. That's when you get older, you don't care. I'll steal a little bit. I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially the ones who are already dead. They can't complain if I borrow a little technique from them, So.
Oh yeah. We're all building on each other.
Sure. Right. We're all sharing.
That's right. That's right. So my question is for Run for Cover. You've got this great setting. We're out west near Grand Teton, which is a completely different setting from the first book.
Right.
So I love that. Immediately. But what were some of the grocery getting that you did for this book?
Let's see. There's what did I do for that? Well, doing a lot of research about these states. I've never been to them. Let's see. What's great, if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of great like Utah Tourism Board. Hey, come to Utah, and they'll go out and they'll do interesting things, and they'll show interesting places and settings and everything like that. But I definitely chose to do something because the first book is set a lot in the Caribbean and at the beach. I definitely want to say, okay, so what's kind of the opposite of that? For the second book, let's take it to a totally different place. So up in the mountains of Wyoming or the high desert. I figured that's about as opposite as you can get. I mean, maybe Antarctica could be different, but from the Caribbean. So.
One of the fun things about writing a series like this is that there's so much about the character of Michael Gannon that you get to tease out from book to book. that if you included all of the things that we will eventually learn about him in one book, it would be a doorstop of a novel, and you would eventually lose people because there's just, too much of an info dump. But with a series character, you get to tease that out book over book. Are there things about Michael Gannon that you're still learning, as each book goes along, or do you have a grand master plan of, in book 8, I'm going to drop this bomb?
No, there's no real grand master plan. Although I do have ideas for what I have ideas for what I want him to do. But yeah, concerning his backstory, that's something that I kind of do when I sit down to actually do the writing. So that's when that kind of creative, yes, definitely while you're writing, stuff just goes, oh, well, maybe he's like this. Yeah. Oh yeah, he would do that. Okay. Yeah. Where that kind of comes out organically after I got my groceries, you know what I mean? After I got my research done and everything, and I sit down, okay, I'm going to start to arrange this in the way, in the best way possible. That's when that kind of stuff kind of, all these kind of, oh yeah, I didn't think of that, so it gives you like another chance for your kind of, I guess, your subconscious, whatever, to kind of gives it another, wait a second, what about this? It's like, oh yeah, you're right. So it's like, there's a surprise for the writer,
Sure.
For me anyway. So yeah. So no, I don't, know exactly who he is. No, I'm discovering him too. Definitely.
That's great. Well, and one of the other great things is that we get to meet new characters along the way, and the character of Gannon gets more rich by his interactions with other characters that you bring in. And of course, one of the most dynamic characters in this book is Kit Hagen. Where did Kit come from?
Kit Hagen, yeah. That's a good question. Where did she come from? Well, let's see. It's funny. I mean, I think a lot of characters that writers, come up with. It's an amalgam of like tons of people that you've met in your life, right? So, I mean, who is she? I mean, I don't know. I had 2 sisters. I got a wife. I got daughters. I got my mother, my mother-in-law. Plenty of women I've known in my life who I've driven nuts. To kind of to go, and people that I've worked with and blah blah. So I think it's an amalgam. It's not just one particular person, and again, because she's an FBI agent, and we kind of know what what FBI agents do, what investigators do. So it kind of stems from that, so a lot of the stuff that she's doing is what any investigator would do, and you color it. With, that you've known in the past,
Sure. Did Michael need a foil, where did you come to a point in the story and you're like, I really need a character that I can give these abilities to, and I can, did she come about as a necessity for the story, or were you thinking about new characters, or did she come about as that this would be a great way to solve this problem that I'm having, and then she, just kind of becomes larger than life?
Yeah, I mean, to my mind, I think one of the things that I just keep finding myself doing is one of the, especially when I'm writing thrillers, right? Because to my mind, I think one of the greatest thrillers of all time is The Eye of the Needle by Ken Follett.
Yeah,
I read that when I was probably in high school, and I thought, man, this book is so good. And just the way that he sets the whole thing up and the way that he structures it, where he has these 3 characters, right? He has the spy, he has the guy looking for him, and he has this woman, right? Who's on the island, whatever, where the spy ends up on the island. So just this whole idea of having these 3 characters, kind of the good guy, the bad guy, and a third character who's like a helper or a foil or the subplot, who kind of connects, goes through it to this kind of curveball of a character who kind of goes through it. That seems to me to be the truly the best way to do it, to really kind of keep it popping, to keep the reader's interest, to have like these three, like juggling, throw these three balls up in the air, and each plays against the other one. And I think that is truly the way to kind of, or 3-card monte, where you move the cups around, right? To kind of really keep the reader's interest going. I mean, and this is one of the things that working with James Patterson and all the wonderful things I learned from him is that really, I mean, you got to keep those pages turning. You got to keep people's curiosity at a high pitch, because this is what I mean. And because again, this is the joy of reading for myself, and this is what I really, am really trying to do to give that back to the reader.
Absolutely. So at the end of book 1, Stop at Nothing, we know that Gannon has been through a trial, and a trial, a personal trial, not like a courtroom trial.
Right.
And he finds himself, kind of licking his wounds a little bit. Where do we find him in book 2? And we've alluded to a few things here, but let's set this book up for people. He's out west. Why does he find himself out west? And what does Gannon get into in this book?
Right. So in the first book, Stop at Nothing, Michael Gannon finds himself banging heads with some. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So he finds himself in the first story, he starts banging heads with some intelligence people, let's call them. And there's shootouts, there's a lot of dangerous things happen. He finds himself having to shoot back in self-defense. And so after all this stuff happens in the second book, he says to himself, well, a lot of crazy stuff has happened. Maybe it's best if I kind of keep my head down now, right? Since all this stuff happened. So he's basically, he calls an old friend of his, this guy, John Barber, who was an old war buddy of his, because Michael Gannon was in Iraq and Afghanistan with the Navy SEALs. So he calls up an old war buddy, this guy, John Barber, who runs one of these kind of executive training camps out in Utah, in the wilds of Utah. And so Michael Gannon finds himself kind of keeping his head down, kind of trying to stay off the grid, trying to stay out of everybody's hair, up until there's a triple murder at a nearby national park. And that's what kind of it draws him out of hiding. And that's how he finds himself hooked up with Kit Hagen, because she's involved in this murder and in the investigation of it. And it goes on from there.
So what can people expect from this book? If they loved book 1, what do you do to ramp up the tension and to make us keep coming back for more from Gannon?
Yeah, I mean, as in the first book, there's in Publishers Weekly, they said the fans of Die Hard will love this series.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is absolutely, was intentional, completely intentional. I take that as a massive compliment, because Die Hard is one of my favorite films. So this is right. So think, it's like think Die Hard meets sort of the Bourne Identity.
That's a great description.
Sort of spy stuff going on, and so. And then you set it, let's say, and it's set in the Midwest, or the West, in Wyoming, in Utah, and there's other locations too. That he goes to San Francisco. There's stuff in Washington D.C. and what have you. So it's much like the first book. There's jumping around to different locations, which is kind of a hallmark of thrillers, right? The settings change.
Right.
Yeah. So you hop around. I try to keep it popping, and so you're going to get, some really cool shootout scenes and stuff like that. And suspense and tension. And I think what is it they say about thrillers is that, difference between a thriller and a mystery is that mysteries are about, who did what, Thrillers are about, when is the killer going to strike, right?
Right.
Yeah, watch. We know that the killer's around the corner, but the character doesn't know. So it has definitely leans more toward thriller stuff, but this one there's more of a mystery because he is investigating something. So it's a bit of both, but it leans more toward thriller. Whereas the first book was pure thriller. There's a bit of more mystery in this one, but not a lot.
Love it. The book is Run for Cover, the second book in the Michael Gannon series. It's available everywhere now in Kindle edition or hardcover or audiobook. However you like to consume books, you can grab it today. We're going to put links to it in the show notes of this episode, as well as a link to Stop at Nothing, the first book in the series. Although I don't think you necessarily need to read book one to enjoy book two. I think you should. I think it's it's going to paint a much better picture of the character of Gannon and all he's going through. Michael, this has been so much fun chatting and catching up. How can people connect with you online if they want to dig into all the great stuff that you've done and are doing?
Yeah, sure. I'm on Twitter it's like what is it? The dash Mike Ledwidge. It's not a dash, a space Mike Ledwidge. At space Mike Ledwidge on Twitter. And I also have a website, michaelledwidge.com. If you can go check out there. You can see all the books and all the stuff I did with James Patterson. And
Awesome. We'll put links there to make sure people can connect with you. Michael, thank you so much for taking time to come back on the show.
Thank you so much, Hank. I really appreciate it. It's great talking to you.
Authors, if you're looking for a partner to help ensure that your book is the best it can possibly be, look no further than Pico's House. Crystal and her staff make a conscious effort to be critical yet courteous. They also strive to make the business side of things run smoothly so that you can rest easy knowing that your manuscript is in capable hands. Whether you need beta reading, developmental editing, a manuscript critique, line editing, copy editing, or proofreading, Pico's House is the one-stop shop for you. Check them out today at picoshouse.com to get started. The Bad Company Complete Series Omnibus, Books 1 through 7. Humanity's greatest export, justice. Space is a dangerous place, even for the wary, especially for the unprepared. The aliens have no idea. Here comes The Bad Company. The Bad Company Book 1, Colonel Terry Henry Walton takes his warriors into battle for a price in this first installment of The Bad Company. He believes in the moral high ground and is happy to get paid for his role in securing it. Set in the Cutherian Gambit universe, Terry, Char, and their people humans, werewolves, were-tigers, and vampires form the core of the Bad Company's direct action branch, a private conflict solution enterprise. Join them as they fight their way across Tissakinnon 4, where none of the warring parties were what they expected. The 7-book series omnibus includes The Bad Company, Blockade, Price of Freedom, Liberation, Destroyer, Discovery, Overwhelming Force. Grab the complete Bad Company series by Craig Martell now. How to Be a Badass Witch by Michael Anderle. Virtutus Gloria Mercies. Translation: Glory is the reward of valor. Fed up with playing the normal game, recent university graduate, ex-cum laude, ex-soccer star, ex-popular and mostly broke Cara Madano changes her life when she decides to research how to be a witch and believes it. Cara didn't want to go back east and deal with her overbearing mom, so when university was done, she stayed behind in Los Angeles. Little did she realize how controlling moms can be from the other side of the country. Feeling a little desperate to make her own way, she buys a few books on business and one on a lark, How to Be a Badass Witch. That's when the trouble started. Find out just what trouble a young woman can get into when the magic just might be real. How to Be a Badass Witch by Michael Anderle.